Hello, welcome. Francis here. Thank you for coming back to my channel. If this is your first time here, I bid thee welcome. There is a subscribe button below if you would like to help support this channel by subscribing, and also a bell to be notified as to when I upload more content. I'm coming to you from Ghana country, and as such, I acknowledge the Ghana people of the Adelaide Plains as being the traditional custodians of this land. So depending on when you watch this and where you are in the world, I would just like to wish you happy equinox here in Adelaide, South Australia. The equinox will be taking place tomorrow. That's the 20th of March. And I think the exact timing is 1:36 p.m. Now I know, and I will link below because I don't know how to put it up there. Excuse me. I have done excerpts from my book, Planting the Sacred Wheel, about the autumn equinox in relation to, in particular, to the Southern Hemisphere. So I'm not going to repeat that. But in this video, I just wanted to mention a few things. Firstly, getting right back to basics as to what is the equinox, and also address probably a bugbear that I have of modern observations of the seasonal festivals. I was going to say pagan or Wiccan or witchcraft, but there are terms which are coming into common usage or public usage that people are just picking up and using without, and this is my bugbear, realizing that they are actually inaccurate and shouldn't be, well, at least in my opinion, shouldn't be used. And there's nothing confusing the term autumn equinox. So getting right back to basics, within the year, the length of time that it takes for our planet Earth to make one complete circuit around the sun, which is our closest star, within that time, there are 4 marker points which are connected with the Earth's wobble. And the Earth is on an axis of 23.5 degrees. So this means that as the Earth is wobbling around the sun, it tilts. When the top part of the Earth is closest to the sun, that's the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, and you'll see that the bottom part furthest away, that's us in the southern hemisphere, so that's our winter solstice. Then it wobbles again, and you get the northern hemisphere pointing away, that's the winter solstice. The southern hemisphere closest to the sun, that is the summer solstice. But in this wobble, there's a time, or 2 times, when the Earth is actually vertical on its axis. And that enables the sun to appear to rise directly on the equator. And that's the timing that I just gave you, 1:36 p.m. here in Adelaide, South Australia, which is the timing of the equinox. Now, to find out when those timings are for where you live, I use a website called timeanddate.com. You can put in the nearest town or city to where you are, and you can find out timings of equinoxes, the solstices, lunar phases, when the moon is at its peak or dark, or the quarter moons as well. You can also find out the rising and setting of the sun. They also have information about eclipses. It's rather interesting. We have an eclipse coming up next week. And to find out where the eclipse will fall, where you are you going to be in its shadow? And no, we're not going to be here in Australia. I think it's more over the US again. Very interesting, because the October eclipse last year was over the US, hitting this cross line, things like that. So that's just one website, and that's the one that I use. Getting back. So when the Earth is vertical on its axis, and depending on where it is in its cycle of tipping, will depend on whether, when the sun's rising on the equinox, so on the equator, whether it is heading towards light, the spring's equinox, which is what's happening in the northern hemisphere, for, like us in the southern hemisphere, heading towards darkness winter, which is the autumnal autumnal equinox. So we have this sort of dance happening throughout the year. And within my eccentric tradition of contemporary witchcraft, we call these marker points the 4 equinoxes and the 4 Sabbaths. The 4 solstices are known as lesser Sabbaths because they mark the midpoints of the seasons. And here at the autumn equinox, we're marking the midpoint of autumn, because the greater Sabbaths, which are agricultural seasons derived from largely Gaelic, Irish, some Scottish names have gone there, but their agricultural festivals or seasons, the autumn actually started at Lammas or Lanasa, which was the starting of the grain harvest. Here at autumn, at the autumn equinox, the autumnal equinox, this is often seen as the harvest of the grape. Where I live, we're close to a number of wine areas. It's also a time where apples sometimes are ready. My apple tree usually doesn't get ripe, if it's not attacked by birds, until April, getting into Samhain, beginning of winter as well. And then we have the third harvest festival, which marks the beginning of winter, which is Samhain here in the southern hemisphere. So in the northern hemisphere, of course, all your seasons are reversed. You're in the middle of the spring season, the Imbolc, which happened around the beginning of February, not the beginning of spring, early spring. And we'll be moving through to Beltane or Beltane, which will actually be marking the beginning of summer. So a lot of the seasonal changes we don't notice until up to 6 weeks later. And that is because it is between this dance, the sacred dance between the sun and the earth. However, especially here at the autumnal equinox, and also due to the fact that we observe daylight savings times here in South Australia, and for some reason it's not going to end until April after Easter, and it's just like, why so late? We're noticing the mornings are very dark, the evenings are very dark as well, so it really feels like autumn is upon us, even though we are still getting very intense heat. And whether it's global warming or climate change, or insert your interpretation here, I have found that our heat is shifting. It's getting sort of longer, later. That even in April, we can get some very hot days. And by that, I mean soil temperatures in the high 20s, early 30s, which when you've had heat waves of 40 degrees, and this is Celsius I'm talking about, heat waves of 40 degrees Celsius, which is over 100 and something Fahrenheit, you're just wanting that respite. You're wanting that rest, that retreat from that hot weather. You're also wanting the rains to come, and actually whole humidity, because we're getting a lot of build-up of humidity these days, all of that to subside. So the autumn equinox is sort of giving us that sign of hope that change is on foot, that we are entering into a time of rest, retreat, reflection, of our energies turning inward, even though in our modern world we very rarely get any times of rest. Now, having said that, due to the climate here, especially in southern Australia, the intensity of our heat in summer, I tend to have a rest over summer. I tend to not be as active, or I tend to be active inside. Actually, I'm not. I'm just sort of on the couch melting under the air conditioner. In winter, I tend to be a bit more active. I might be more internally, but I tend to be more active during our winter, especially around the winter solstice and around the summer solstice. And that's largely because of our weather. But traditionally, autumn, moving from autumn into winter, the autumn equinox, is sort of subconsciously shifting us into this time of darkness, into this time of when the hours of the night, of less sun, is lengthening. And in doing so, our bodies shift, the whole DNA, our soul-cellular makeup begins to shift as well. Or it should be, but we're living in, especially our modern world, very light-focused environments. Not only do we have 24-hour lighting these days, but also our devices, especially our mobile phones, our cell phones, with the artificial light in it, with the LED lighting. So it's actually a blue light. It's a blue light. It's actually I'm not quite sure it's a blue light. It's a very cold, sterile light. And this is what we're finding, especially in younger people these days. They are becoming more restless. They are suffering more from just sleep deprivation, having issues getting to sleep. And people who have been sort of investigating this area or their effect that this excessive increase of this intense artificial light, it's not even like our 40-degree heat, which is more of a red or a golden light from the sun. Our LED lighting is a blue light. How this actually is starting to affect the DNA, the cellular structure, in particular the younger generations, because all of this has happened very quickly in our lifetime. It's happened within my lifetime. And because I'm of a certain age, there are younger generations who have known nothing but 24-hour lighting, have known nothing but LED lights. And these LED lights are everywhere now. They're in not only our cellular devices, our cell phones, our mobile phones, but also in our televisions, also in our light bulbs, because there are benefits. They last longer. So in our car lights, in our street lights, but there is a detriment. It's always give and take. And the detriment is the effect that it has on our biology, our psychic levels, even our physiology as well, our own cellular makeup. And people who have explored this area, the sort of biological area, biological connection on more deeper levels than I have sort of put a connection between the increase in ADHD, mental illness, depression, anxiety, or restlessness that some people are dipping into, increase in chronic fatigue, and even some have gone as far as saying cancers. Now, I always sort of put a question mark. When it comes to cancers, there are so many contributing factors, and people still do not actually know what causes cancers, because there's so many different cancers out there, and it is on a cellular level too. And technically, we all have that potential within us. So getting back on track, and all these diseases, this increase in restlessness. A lot of them, when you think about it, it is a restlessness. There is sort of a not fitting in, even depression, anxiety. When you're sort of looking at it from a more metaphysical aspect, it's almost like there's a dis-ease, there's a not adjusting, not fitting in, not feeling comfortable, safe, secure, whether it's in your environment or in this physical self as your environment. And is there a connection back to our increased usage of LED lighting, saying it's necessarily a bad thing, but our lack or increasing limitlessness of darkness? our misunderstanding of the importance of darkness, that our body needs to rest. It needs to have those periods of reflection, of retreat. We need to get X amount of hours, between 6 and 8 hours of sleep a day for us to be more productive. Yet it's almost like a catch-22, because in our modern capitalistic society, any rest is seen as laziness. And that is now encroaching onto our sleep, our hours of darkness, that biologically we need to be at our peak, because it's in these hours of darkness that our cell regeneration occurs, that our body also manifests melatonin, which is a hormone that increases our sleeplessness, but it's in those periods of rest that the cell generation or regeneration or repair can actually occur at a deeper level. However, in our capitalist productive focus society, which is usually money driven and very narrowly together, or the vision is very narrow, the increase in lighting, 24-hour lighting, or even getting windowless buildings, plays with our own cellular, our own biology, that we don't know when our body is learning not, or forgetting how to switch off, how to go into that time of rest. Hence the cycle of increased depression, anxiety, chronic fatigue, ADHD. Now, this doesn't happen overnight, but it does. There is an increasing connection, querying out there. So to me, this is why this equinoxes in particular are important, because they all sort of underpin this message of balance. In the Northern Hemisphere, as you're moving from darkness into light, and I'll use my garden as an analogy, it's like I've planted my seeds. Now's the time to sort of weed out all the carrots that have come up to make sure that the strongest survive. So look around your life, go around your house, your lifestyle. Where is the balance? Are you in balance? Because it almost contradicts our capitalistic mindset that to be more productive, we have to do more. Sometimes to be more productive, we need to do less, because that enables us to focus faster, better on the task at hand. On the other end of the scale here in the Southern Hemisphere, we move into that. Again, it's a time of sort of bringing things into balance. I also do a decluttering of autumn cleaning as well, because as we begin to retreat inward due to the weather, obviously we spend more time around the home, we are looking around our home and the energetics of our home. And we sort of had this enforced upon us during the lockdown of COVID. So this is a good time to look at our home, look at our nest, look at what we've brought in, and to see what needs to be finished, that all those unfinished projects, all those unwanted things that we've taken on board or someone's gifted us. We're talking about physical things, and we're just sitting there going, I no longer need them, no longer want them. Things we've outgrown. A good time to do decluttering. And in doing that, we're almost like, again, to use a garden analogy, starting to prepare the soil, allowing it to rest. So then we can start thinking about what we want to plant for the new year. So that was just some thoughts that I thought I would share with you in relation to this time of the year. Wherever you are, whatever you do, I hope you have a wonderful equinox. Hope you, even if you're watching this after the equinox, there's still plenty of time to sort of consider what you need to do in your life to bring things back into balance. So take care and blessings.